Hey guys, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I make quick and easy gum paste peonies. This is a new way for me of making peonies, but I love how quick and easy it is. So I just wanted to share it with you. I am using satinized gum paste for these peonies. I hate wiring flowers. It takes too much time for me. I love people who make wired flowers and they just turn out so beautiful. I'm just not one of those people. I am not a very patient person by nature. So I'm always looking for a quick and easy way to make flowers. So this is one way that I just recently came up to make peonies. Okay, so I've got this set of round cutters that have this frilled edge on it. And I've got one of these cutters, the large one is 2 inches around. And then I've got this smaller one, which is 1 inch around. And the smaller one does not need to have a frilled edge. But you can buy these cutters in a set on Amazon, which is where I got mine. Here's the rest of the set I just wanted to show you. And then I have an extra little cutter added in there as well. Don't mind the little green cutter. But this is what I'm using to make my peonies, my petals. And I've got this thin piece of foam. This one's by Wilton, I think. And I have a ball tool, a metal ball tool by Cake Duchess. I really love it. I also have this little, it's kind of like a plastic petal keeper. It basically just keeps my petals covered so they don't dry out on me while I'm working with other petals. And I have a knife and I have a small rolling pin and some powdered sugar. And that is really all that you need to create these quick and easy peonies. Okay, so I am going to roll out my gum paste really thin. But before I do that, I am taking a scrap piece of gum paste or fondant or whatever you want to use, and I am rolling it in my hands to get any little pieces of lint off from towels that I've dried my hands with. And then I also rolled it onto my rolling pin there to get any little colored pieces off of that as well. That's just a little trick I do to keep things nice and clean. Okay, before I roll out the thin petals, I'm actually going to start with this little round color, and I'm just going and I'm going to cut out 2 circles. These are relatively thick. You can see how thick I've made them there. Those are going to help stabilize our peony. Okay, so those are not actually going to be petals. Those are something else. So you just want to cut out 2 of them, and those can stay out in the open air. It's okay if those dry a little bit. Then I'm going to take the rest and I'm going to roll out my gum paste relatively thin. You can go even thinner than this. The thinner you go, the more realistic your petals will look. So keep that in mind. And now I'm going to start cutting out using this 2-inch frilly round cutter. I'm going to start cutting out petals, and I want to cut out 12 of these. And you can see this little storage thing helps me keep them covered and so that they don't dry out. Okay, so 12 of these, about 12 of them. It's okay if you're off by 1 or 2, it really doesn't matter. Once you've got those all cut out, you're going to start rolling the edges. So you want a ball tool, and you just want to gently roll along the edge of the frill there. We're just thinning it out and making it a little bit more ruffly because, as we all know, peonies are the ruffly flower. So we just want these as frilly as possible. And by rolling over the edges, that really gives us that extra frill. Okay, once you've done that, cut it in half. After you've cut it in half, you want just a little bit of water, not a sloppy lot of water, just a little bit of water. I'm going to put on the bottom edge of each of these halves and also on one of those circles, those thick circles I cut out. And now I'm just kind of folding over the petals on themselves. I make like 3 folds in them. One on the end here, folding it again, and then folding that little edge. And I'm going to stick them like so onto this thick round piece. And then I'm going to get another one and do the exact same thing to that, then cut it in half and put the water on, fold it in little sections, and then I'm going to add those onto the round piece. So I've kind of added them in a cross-like fashion. And that is going to start off our peony. Now you want something to kind of help form this, as it dries. I started with this half sphere baking pan, but I actually changed to something else later on because it was a little too tight for me. So I actually found a little round glass bowl that I used to form my flour, and you can use anything that works for you. But you will want to find something that is like kind of cup shaped to help this when it's time for it to dry. Okay, so now we're going to the next section. I've done the same thing with more petals. Cut them in half, fold them over, and now I'm adding them behind on the bottom of that circle, that thick circle, and in between the petals that I added on the first round. Okay, so folding it over, make sure it's nice and sticky. That bottom section there, you can add a little water to the back of that circle if you want. And then I'm adding them behind. That first layer I added on top of the circle. The second layer I'm adding in between those first petals and onto the back of that thick circle. Okay, that was the second round. Now, so you can see my little glass bowl here. I'm putting some powdered sugar in it so that my flour doesn't stick to it. And that is what is going to be my former. I just stick it in there while I'm working on the next petals and then take it out to add the petals. But eventually it's going to go back in there to dry overnight. Okay, so more petals. 1, 2, I think I cut 2 or 3 more circles. It doesn't really matter. You just want enough so that you'll be able to fill it in nicely. Okay, so before I add my next layer of petals, I'm adding that second thick circle now to the bottom of the first one. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing with the rest of my petals. And I'm going to get some water and make the back sticky, and then I'm going to add those to the back of the petal in between that last layer of petals that I put on. 2, 3, 4. I think I add about 5 or maybe 6. At this point, it doesn't really matter how many you add, just to make sure you fill up, that next layer, pretty much. At this point, you can add as many as you want to get the look that you want. Okay, I had to cut a few more to fill up that last layer. So that is basically 3 layers of petals, and we are going to let that dry overnight. But before we do, we have to fill in the middle section. I forgot about our middle section here. So I added a little bit of water now to the middle top. And I'm just folding up the last of my petals. I think I've got 4. I'm folding up and I'm just adding them into this middle section. And they, so that they stick up a little bit and they fill out the middle of the flower. And then if you need a little tool to just kind of push down so that to make sure that they're sticking in the middle, you can use one. And then I just kind of look at it to make sure it looks nice and ruffly and it's all filled in. And then I'm going to let that dry overnight. I am going to this is what it's going to look like. I colored this one. I'll show you how I do that in a minute. But I'm going to make some extra petals that I'm going to let kind of dry on this little silicone half sphere baking pan that I told you about. I just kind of hang it over the edge like so with some powdered sugar so they don't stick. I made the petals the exact same way I made the other ones. These are extra that I can add the next day after what I made dries. I can add these on with some isomalt. I just kind of melt some isomalt. I dip them into the isomalt and then I add them onto the back of the flower. They'll be nice and stiff. And that will just add some extra movement to my flower so it's not so cup shaped in the end. That will really give it that extra pretty look at the end. And I'll show you that in a minute. But first, I've got the section that was drying in my little round bowl overnight. And I'm taking some pink petal dust and I'm just adding it to the edges of my petals all around. I'm not, coloring the entire petal. I'm just kind of focusing more on the edges of the petals just to give it a little bit of pink, not a full pink coverage. If you don't want to take the time to add the petal dust, you could always airbrush this as well. Just be, gentle and don't go too heavy-handed, or it's going to be a lot more pink than you intend. I really wanted this to be a light, subtle pink. You can see my extra petals on the side over there as well. Make sure to add the pink to the edges of those extra petals as well. And now we're going to add some black. I just, there was a peony I was looking at online that had just a little bit of black kind of down in the center that you couldn't see super well, but you just got this hint of black coming through, and I really liked the look. So I thought I would recreate it with some black petal dust, keeping it towards the center, not going all the way out on the edges, but just kind of keeping it towards the middle a bit. And then also it had just a hint of yellow as well. So I got this buttercup petal dust, and I kind of put this on the edge of where I've got the black, kind of in between the pink and the black is where I'm adding it. Just a little bit, just to give it that extra little pop of color. And that is basically all I did to create these peonies. So now I'm just adding the pink to my extra little petals here. And I don't have on camera me adding the petals to the flower with ice malt because my daughter got sick and I ran out of time. So I had to do it much later. But I'm showing you here how, I'm just kind of arranging them ahead of time in my head how I want them to be. But all I did, and I will show you a video of them attached, is melted some ice malt in a little silicone bowl, just a little bit, and then I dipped the edge of those little leaves into the ice malt and then stuck them onto the back of the flower, let them harden and set, and it gave me this right here, which you can see the extra movement with those petals attached, and you can see where the ice malt is there. So I dipped them in, attached them, and then I added a little bit of extra ice malt onto the back of them just to make sure that they stuck nice and well. And then I stuck a skewer into it as well, into the middle section there with some ice malt. And now I can just stick that onto any cake I want. And it's got movement, and it was super easy, and I didn't have to wire each petal. And I just think it's a pretty look for something that is really quick and easy. So I hope you enjoy. And if you want to see, I actually added one to this bunny in a basket cake. I didn't add the extra petals. I wish I had on this because I think it would have been prettier, but I ran out of time. Like I said, my daughter got sick. If you'd like to see how I made this a full bunny in the basket cake, the tutorial is on cakeheads.com. Come on over there, become a member, join us. We have lots of fun. There's lots of fun stuff to watch and live demos, and we hang out in the group and support each other and help each other out with troubleshooting and all of that. So I'd love to see you over there. If you ever get the inkling, thanks for watching this. I'll see you later.